Okay, Tom, you're all set.
All right, very good. Good morning, everyone. My name is Thomas Elmore. I'm the chair of the Connecticut Historic Preservation Council, and I'm calling to order our August 3rd, 2022 Historic Preservation Council meeting to order. With me this morning are the following council members: Beth Ackley, Beth Burgess, Marguerite Carnell, myself as chair, Margaret Faber, Leah Glazer, Christine Nelson, vice chair, and Sarah Nelson. We have a quorum, so we'll get started. The following is the Historic Preservation Council's format and review for public comment procedures. Given the online format of today's meeting, and for those who are visitors today, I want to review and explain our procedures. The order of the presentation. I will read each motion and ask for the motion to be moved and seconded. Staff will present the agenda item to the council. Council members will have an opportunity to ask questions. If called upon by staff, a representative of the organization may offer statements or address council's questions. For members of the public who wish to speak to an agenda item, we ask that you identify yourself and your affiliation. After all questions have been addressed and statements made, a roll call vote will be taken. If members of the public have letters and/or written statements they wish to submit for the record, please email them to Jonathan Kinney. His email address is jonathan.kinney@ct.gov. The Historic Preservation Council takes statements from members of the public but does not respond to questions. Lastly, please only address the particular agenda item being addressed at that time. The following is the Historic Preservation Council's policy regarding conflict of interest. The Historic Preservation Council votes on matters which provide leadership, service, and economic benefits to property owners, consultants, local governments, and not-for-profit organizations. Given this responsibility and to maintain the highest professional standards in the discharge of our duties, it is important to maintain a strong code of ethics for all council members and department employees. In order to avoid possible violations of the Department of Economic and Community Development Ethics Statement, it is necessary for the council to be aware of any situations in which there is a real potential or apparent conflict of interest involving anyone here. A conflict of interest may occur when a public official's participation in agency matters results in personal financial gain. All council and staff have been provided with a copy of the Department of Economic and Community Development Ethics Statement and governing state statutes. Having reviewed them and today's agenda, members of the council and staff are now asked to disclose any affiliations with entities or projects that may create a conflict of interest as defined by agency policy and pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 1-79 through 1-89 entitled Code of Ethics for Public Officials. Once disclosed, the member or staff may recuse themselves from that particular agenda item. Having read this statement, are there any council or staff members that would like to disclose a conflict of interest to any of the items on today's agenda?
I have a question about one that I'm not sure. I worked within the last few years in Tolland at the old Tolland County Courthouse. I was on that team and worked with some of the people in the team that are coming forward for today's grants. Any thoughts on whether that is considered?
Are you presently on a team competing for that project or working on that project?
No, but I don't think an RFP has gone out for it.
Yeah, I don't think there's a conflict of interest then. I think you're fine.
All right, thank you, Tom.
Anyone else?
Tom, this is Marguerite. Similarly, a few years ago, I was involved in a project for the Samuel Smith House in East Lyme, doing architectural history for it. AHS and past would not be going after this particular project, but I just wanted to make that past affiliation known for the record.
All right, very good. Thank you, Marguerite. Anyone else? All right, very good. First item on the agenda, the meeting minutes. The meeting minutes for the July 6th meeting were put into Dropbox and provided to council members for review. I know Marguerite submitted a couple minor corrections. Were there others that people saw that would like to bring to our attention? Hearing none, seeing none. May I have a motion to approve the minutes with the minor corrections that Marguerite had submitted.
Marguerite, so moved.
And a second?
Margaret, second.
All right, we have a motion to approve the minutes. I'll take a roll call vote. Beth Ackley,
Aye.
Beth Burgess,
Aye.
Marguerite Carnell.
Aye.
I will abstain. Margaret Faber,
Aye.
Leah Glazer,
Aye.
Christine Nelson,
Abstain.
and Sarah Nelson.
Abstain, I wasn't at the meeting.
Very good. Motion carries. Thank you. First item on the agenda is 5B1. The Historic Preservation Council votes to award a survey and planning grant funded by the Community Investment Act of the State of Connecticut to the below listed applicant in the amount shown. All grant guidelines and state requirements shall be met by the below listed applicant upon receipt of a grant as administered by the Department of Economic and Community Development. Staff recommends the application for funding. The applicant, Ridgefield Historical Society. Project, consulting services of a CFR qualified architectural historian/historian team to prepare a historic resources inventory for the town of Ridgefield. Grant amount of $30,000. May I have a motion to bring this to the table for discussion?
So moved, Beth Burgess.
And a
Second,
second?
Christine.
Thank you. And Mary.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Just a couple things first about the grant itself. Historic resources inventories are, a basic building block for any town's preservation plan. It's a requirement of our certified local governments that they develop historic resources inventories and also update them as needed. And for that reason, we offer a survey and planning grant, which with a larger cap than usual, $30,000, and without a required match. So that's what's going on with the budget. And so this first ask is Ridgefield Historical Society. I don't believe they could be here this morning, but staff does recommend the application for approval, and I'll be happy to answer any questions about the product or the application.
Great, thank you. Questions, comments from council members?
Tom, I'm sorry, Mary, could I ask? Good morning. Could you explain the difference or how the two Ridgefield applications work together?
Sure,
Thank
sure. As you saw from both applications, they want to undertake a very large scale project over 2 years. And so they're collaborating together. They're usually done by towns or the local historical society. So they've decided to team up. And so even though neither grant requires a match, they are maximizing the amount that they can receive this year. They do plan to come back for a second grant next year. I think the only reason they didn't apply for a 2-year grant is because we don't really have a mechanism for that under this program right now. So they do plan to come back for a second grant after this. But yeah, they're teaming up, and each entity is eligible for this $30,000 without a match. And so that's how we recommended that they move forward.
Great, thank you. So it sounds like they're working in tandem, both projects then.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Great.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Marguerite?
Yeah, I just had a question, a minor point on the period when the grant will be ending in terms of date of resources surveyed, whether it's 1970 as indicated on page 3 or up to 1975 as noted on page 7.
Good catch. They can do up to 1975. I believe that, and I think both of those periods would fall under the new resources that they want to explore. So I can clarify with them with that. There is no age threshold like there is with the National Register, for example. So there's certainly, if there are resources that look like they might have significance, either architecturally or historically, the 1975 date is fine. But yeah, I'll make sure they clarify that, especially in the RFP, if they get the grant.
Thanks.
Margaret?
Sorry. I'm wondering if a resource has been demolished since 1979, will it be noted in the new inventory?
That is part of the updating, yes. And as you know, it's an old, survey, so they,
Right. But they'll know,
unfortunately,
and it'll
yes.
stay, the record stays, so people know what was there. in the past.
Exactly, yes,
Okay,
that's
awesome.
part of the updating.
And then just a clarification on the budget. It said that there's 10% admin fee in the budget table, which was section E, and then it said 5% in the budget narrative, which is F, and just wondering about that.
Yeah, they're because they're planning a 2-year grant. They're spreading the 10% over 2 years, even though they've not actually applied for that second grant. They can we'll track that with their budget, but I think that was just their way of kind of planning ahead. But they're splitting it out. That's why.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments? Leah? Yes.
So I don't know how, relevant or important it is for these type of grants, but I know that both of these talked about doing also new context statements in order to do the inventories. And I guess, so that's part of it, is finding this history. But for the brief history in both grants that's written about Ridgefield, it's very settler colonial-y.
Yes.
Yes. Which I just think, as a state institution, we should just encourage them to start with and acknowledge Native history and not perpetuate the buying of Native lands because that's all, not necessarily accepted history in terms of how, and that history doesn't start with the colonials. So I just want to encourage them to think broader.
Oh, they'll be required. They'll be required to do that. The current, these resources inventories include a 25-page essay on architectural and historical significance, and this one is about 40, almost 50 years, about 40 years old. And so the inventory itself, the old one, is probably very, European settler, or but no, as we've discussed in past meetings, our National Register nominations and updates, SRs, everything, we need to require that the broader historical perspective be explored and explained and presented. So that will happen, yes.
Okay, and just in the grants, just encourage people that, the beginning of these town histories doesn't start with, shouldn't start there. Just
right. No,
just need to get out of that habit, I think. Yeah. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Anyone else? Questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote to approve the application. Beth Ackley?
Aye.
Beth Burgess?
Aye.
Marguerite Carnell?
Aye.
I will abstain. Margaret Faber?
Aye.
Leah Glazer?
Aye.
Christine Nelson?
Aye.
And Sarah Nelson?
Aye.
Very good. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is 5B2. The Historic Preservation Council votes to award a supplemental certified local government grant funded by the Community Investment Act of the State of Connecticut to the below listed applicant in the amount shown. All grant guidelines and state requirements shall be met by the below listed applicant upon receipt of a grant as administered by the Department of Economic and Community Development. Staff recommends the application for funding. The applicant, Town of Ridgefield. Project, consulting services of a CFR qualified architectural historian/historian team to prepare a historic resources inventory for the town of Ridgefield. Grant amount of $30,000. May I have a motion to bring this to the table for discussion?
Marguerite,
So
so
moved, Christine.
Deborah will give that to Marguerite and Christine for the second. All right, Mary, discussion?
Great, thank you. And then just a little bit about, the supplemental CLG grant. When CIA was first passed back in 2005, I guess, this program was introduced to supplement our funding that we would make available to certified local governments. So it is state funding. It's not like the usual federal CLG grant that we award. Generally, the supplemental CLG grant requires a match, but again, since this is for an historic resources inventory, there's no match required. And again, as our previous conversation under item 5B1, this is going to be a joint project between the town of Ridgefield and the Ridgefield Historical Society. I don't believe I thought they were going to join, but they may not have made it. I don't see them here. So I'll be happy to answer any questions about this application as well.
Great. Questions, comments, council members? All right. I think we addressed them in the last one, Mary. So I'll take a roll call vote to approve the application. Beth Ackley,
Aye.
Beth Burgess,
Aye.
Marguerite Carnell.
aye.
I will abstain. Margaret Faber,
Aye.
Leah Glazer,
Aye.
Christine Nelson,
Aye.
and Sarah Nelson.
Aye.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is 5B3. The Historic Preservation Council votes to award a certified local government historic preservation enhancement grant funded by the Historic Preservation Fund of the Department of the Interior National Park Service to the below listed applicant in the amount shown. All federal and state grant guidelines and requirements shall be met by the below listed applicant upon receipt of a grant as administered by the Department of Economic and Community Development. Staff recommends the application for funding. Applicant, Town of Tolland. Project, consulting services of a CFR qualified historical architect to prepare architectural plans and specifications for restoration projects for the Old Tolland County Jail and Museum dated 1856, located at 52 Tolland Green, Tolland, Connecticut. Grant amount of $20,000. May I have a motion to bring this to the table for discussion?
So moved, Margaret.
Second,
second?
Christine.
All right, Mary.
Okay, great, thank you. So staff does recommend approval of this application. We did do a site visit to the resource a while back. Aaron Fink and I did, and met with the town. I was a little concerned about the budget because the federal CLG grant does not require a match, so they are working with $20,000. However, the projects that they need plans for are fairly simple. Sort of assessing the condition of the porch column and hoods and figuring out the specifications for their repair. I think the main project will be the ADA accessibility ramp, which will require, a design that meets the standards, but also obviously provides accessibility. I did talk to the town about the budget, and their sort of internal estimates of the costs are such that I think $20,000 will be enough for the design component of this project. Leslie Campolongo is here from the town, who can maybe answer any questions or concerns that I can't.
Great. Thanks, Mary. Questions or comments from council members?
I'll just give a comment that I thought the project timeline was really well done. I liked seeing it out like that. It's above and beyond what we normally see. Thank you.
Oh, good. I'll use that as a model. Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? All right, hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote to approve the application. Beth Ackley,
Aye.
Beth Burgess,
Aye.
Marguerite Carnell,
Aye.
I will abstain. Margaret Faber,
Aye.
Leah Glazer,
Aye.
Christine Nelson,
Aye.
and Sarah Nelson.
Aye.
Very good. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, folks.
That was Leslie.
Next item on the agenda is 5B4. The Historic Preservation Council votes to award a certified local government historic preservation enhancement grant funded by the Historic Preservation Fund of the Department of the Interior, National Park Service to the below listed applicant in the amount shown. All federal and state grant guidelines and requirements shall be met by the below listed applicant upon receipt of a grant as administered by the Department of Economic and Community Development. Staff recommends the application for funding. The applicant, Town of East Lyme, project, consulting services of a CFR qualified historical architect / structural engineering team to prepare a condition assessment report for the Samuel Smith House dated 1686, located at 82 Plants Dam Road in East Lyme, Connecticut. Grant amount of $20,000. May I have a motion to bring this to the table for discussion?
Sarah Nelson, so moved.
And a second?
Second, Christine.
Okay, Mary?
Great, thank you. So a couple things here. As you noted, or as you saw in the application narrative, we do hold an easement on this property. I think practically everybody from the staff has been out there multiple times. There's a couple things here. The organization has an idea of what they want to do to move forward with the, with certain preservation restoration plans. They just can't figure out what to do first. So a condition assessment is often, helpful in identifying, the most critical needs and kind of giving a roadmap for next steps. But primary, upon a fairly recent site visit, to just look at a roof replacement, it became very evident, and we were also out there with Mike Farino with Preservation Connecticut, that there are some structural issues going on. And so if the town is awarded the grant, the reason they're asking for a structural engineer as part of the team is that they really need to look at not just the basement, but the rafter. They need to take a look at the structure before they even think about putting a new roof on the resource. So we do recommend that you grant this award, and then we will work with the town and the organization to fashion a request for proposals that best helps them with their next steps. Ali Christensen from the town is here, I believe, still, and she can hopefully answer any questions or concerns that I can't.
Great, thanks, Mary. Beth Ackley, I see your hands up.
Yeah, a couple questions, Mary. One, is the roof just aged and that's the reason for deciding to want to replace it, or is it actually leaking at this point?
No, it's just past its useful life.
Okay. And then it looks like in one of the photos that girt in the wall girt there's a concern about is actually exposed and open right now. Is that currently the case?
I believe so. I don't think that was done for illustrative. Yes, I don't know. Maybe Ali can answer that. I don't want to say anything. Unless Aaron, I don't know when the last time was you were out there. I don't know. Oh, you're muted if you're trying to talk.
Technical difficulties. Yes, it is exposed.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have for questions.
Thanks, Beth. Anyone else? Questions or comments? Yes, Marguerite.
I just want to note that the two halves of the house were actually built at two different times, and the structure is really complex, and being such an early house, very important. So would just urge that the consultants that are selected have special expertise in this very early time period. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, that's great. I appreciate that input. When we help applicants or hopefully grantees with their RFPs, we do try to point out any specific expertise, beyond historic architecture or structural engineering. So thanks.
Yeah, if I could just add for the RFP, just to be a little more specific about maybe the style or the features of the house that needs special attention, because it's just a little vague in the grant here.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just in terms of a time period, that's all it says. So just to make people aware if they're bidding.
And also, just to further that, to include in the RFP the resources that are available, the studies that have already been done, so that
Yep.
everything can be built off of that.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote to approve the application. Beth Ackley,
Aye.
Beth Burgess,
Aye.
Marguerite Carnell.
Aye.
I will abstain. Margaret Faber,
Aye.
Leah Glazer,
Aye.
Christine Nelson,
Aye.
and Sarah Nelson.
Aye.
Very good. Motion carries.
Great. Thank you so much.
Next item on the agenda is threatened properties with an update on SEPA updates with Todd Levine.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Hi, everyone. Good to see y'all back in the office. It's great to be here. I have just one update, and that is for Suffield. It had been referred to the Attorney General about 3 months ago, and then after we had met with the owner, he went radio silent, so we were a little concerned, especially after we heard this week that they broke ground. But the good news is they resubmitted a new plan to the town last month. We just didn't know, which moved the whole project up, leaving the tobacco shed retained and not damaged. So good win for everybody. And that's my only update. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Todd. Todd, Todd, are you still with us?
Of course I am.
Question for you. So the new design has the house closer to the road. Tobacco shed stands. Does the tobacco shed get taken care of?
So that is not our purview. The law only prevents demolition. However, there are some potential other avenues of funding that are kind of under consideration. There's a private fund that is potentially being developed now for historic barns. So I'm hoping that if it takes off in the next 12 months, we'll reach back out to these guys and say, hey, listen, this is an opportunity for you guys to get some funding. Unfortunately, it wouldn't really apply for an historic home tax credit because there's no home there. They're building new. So the only building on the site that's historic is the tobacco shed.
Great, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the report on State Historic Preservation Office. Jonathan Kinney.
Good morning, everyone. 3 things for you today. The first is the SHPO's hiring efforts, which I feel like I've been talking to you for about a year about, but I do have some great news. We did bring on a new member, a full-time member of the staff. There he is right there, Corey Atkinson. He started in July. He is the new staff archaeologist for SHPO. We're very excited to have him here and then as a new member of the team, and he'll be working primarily in the environmental review section. So if you have an opportunity, reach out to Corey, introduce yourself, but he'll be around, and we're very happy to have him. The second item I have for you is regarding in-person or hybrid meetings for HPC. So I had reported, I think earlier this year, that we were still waiting on the technology in the building to be able to make those hybrid meetings happen. Jenny Schofield and I met with our IT folks last week, I think it was, and it does appear that we now have the capability to put together a hybrid meeting. We're going to test it out in September for the State Review Board meeting, which is a smaller group, and that's going to be on September 16th, but I will report back to HPC at the October meeting, and then maybe we can begin those conversations about whether or not we want to transition to a hybrid format. In person, I suspected hybrid would be the way to go, but we can talk more about that in the next month or so. And then the last thing I have for you is another exciting development. I have sent over a new candidate for HPC to the governor's office as of last week. And we're just waiting back to hear from them regarding the appointment. This new individual, I won't name yet until the appointment goes through, but will be taking over the spot held by our very own Margaret Faber. So this may be our last meeting with Margaret. So I do want to take this opportunity to thank Margaret for her many years of service and for sharing her expertise and insights with us. And she will certainly be missed, but hopefully she can come back to a future meeting and we can give you a proper send off. So yes, I will have more information on that shortly, and the new member may actually be at the September meeting. So that's all I have for a SHPO report.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan.
Mhm.
Margaret, thank you for your years of service.
It's been a real privilege. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the report of museum properties. Liz Shapiro.
Yeah, I have that for you, Tom. Liz, I don't believe is here. Let me read this for you. Okay, museum report on behalf of Liz Shapiro at the Prudence Crandall Museum. The Prudence Crandall Museum and Old Newgate Prison will be presenting in a half-day conference and community conversation on August 9th at the Mashantucket Museum and Research Center, hosted by Connecticut Humanities, focusing on how narratives are shaped and how those narratives influence our understanding of and dialogue about issues such as education equity, criminal justice, civic engagement, and Indigenous history. This is part of a larger project organized by Connecticut Humanities, working with the International Coalition of Sites of Conscience, of which our 4 museums are members. Joni DiMartino is seeing regular visitation at the museum, and the time tours seem to be working. Unfortunately, Joni has to be out of work for the next 2 weeks, and we are doing our best to cover her absence with our limited staff. More about that shortly. The museum has also been invited to participate in the Canterbury Back to School Community Give Back, where as part of the back to school activities at the Helen Baldwin Elementary School, which is right down the street from the museum, students will participate in volunteer projects at organizations in the community. Students will come to the Prudence Crandall Museum to plant daffodil bulbs in the Peace Garden and permanently place the peace pole in the garden. At Newgate, they have hosted the Mineral Show in July and have had several performances of the original play about the history of the site performed by the Simsbury Players. A new sign was installed, created by the folks at Cheshire Correctional, and this summer an art display is on exhibit in the Visitor Center in the Guardhouse, consisting of amazing pieces created by participants in the Prison Arts Program. At the Henry Whitfield Museum, staff are reviewing interpretive text for the new exhibit in the Education Shed. As a reminder, the exhibit will better place the museum into the historical context of the colonial revival era and its underpinnings. Relatedly, the museum has some great plans in place for an event during Welcoming Week, including 3 multicultural performances, dance, theater, and storytelling, an expo of welcoming community organizations. So far, Guilford Social Services, Guilford Teen Iris Club, and Guilford ABAR Alliance, with others planned, possibly a Unity public art project, Kindness Rock Painting, Vax Clinic, and food trucks. At the Eric Sloan Museum, currently Andrew Rowan and Liz are working with DOT, the state railway team at DOT, DEEP, and others to untangle a lease granted to the Connecticut Antique Machinery Association in 1998 to develop a narrow gauge railway for visitors across state property. It seems we are close to getting things straightened out. Visitation at Sloan continues to be robust, with gift shop sales Saturday and Sunday of last weekend clocking in at $1,200. The museum is negotiating a $5,000 donation to support historic trade classes and demos at the museum. And finally, a lot of great social media on the Eric Sloan Museum, including posts from Ryan Shepard, an archivist for the Washington Historical Society in DC. One staffing note for the museums: they are currently operating with only 3 seasonal employees. They were only able to hire 4, and unfortunately 1 has left for a full-time job opportunity. Kudos to staff for managing so well. That concludes the museum report.
Great, thank you, Jonathan. Next item on the agenda is new business. Mary?
Hi. I hope you all read the write-up that we put in Dropbox. We just wanted your input on an idea for a policy change to the survey and planning grant. Very specific and limited. And what's driving it is just the need for more shovel-ready projects to go to the HRF program, and with plans and specifications that the council can be comfortable, approving. It also addresses some of our applicants' difficulty with trying to get a second matching grant before they go to HRF. Right now, the general pattern is, we ask them to get a overall condition assessment to identify critical, needs, and then identify one of those priority needs and get a set of architectural plans and specifications, and then apply to the HRF grant program. Very often an applicant will get a condition assessment and think that that's enough to go straight to HRF, which we all know it's not. Not always, sometimes, depending on the project. But by the same token, they've been kind of putting all of their energy into getting the match for the HRF grant, and having to take this second step is frustrating, and also sometimes economically it gives them a hit. So we were thinking that for those applicants only that have a SHPO funded condition assessment that's been reviewed and meets the standards, if that applicant wants to move forward to the Historic Restoration Fund grant, we'd like to offer them a non-matching grant to get the appropriate plans and specifications. Obviously, if it's non-matching, our cap of 20,000 is not enough, often not enough. So we would like to raise the cap as well, and this is where your input would be very valuable. We were thinking 40 or 50, and that's based on, fairly small projects of, 500,000 or so. So we're hoping that this will help our applicants, help staff, help the council. And we just wanted to run it by you to see if you had questions, concerns, red flags, ideas, as to how to implement this. Yeah, I think that's it. Any thoughts or comments?
Sarah?
Thank you, Mary, for that explanation, and kudos to the SHPO staff for coming up with this program, because you've identified what's very much of a critical need in the organizations that are managing historic properties. So I think it's terrific. I just wanted to ask you one question. In your description a few minutes ago, what you were talking about was that this was limited application for people who have a completed condition assessment, and I think you indicated coming through the survey and planning grant. And I just wanted to say, sometimes people actually do self-fund a condition assessment, and so maybe if you might want to expand your thinking to include, evidence of a well-done condition assessment.
Oh, sure. And the reason we kind of included that stipulation, but, we obviously appreciate, this is good feedback, was because having a condition assessment that we've determined meets the standards, they've already competitively bid their architect. So, so that architect can provide a solid budget. So all the applicant has to do is just apply that. And once they get the grant, they don't have to go out and rebid. Now, having said that, if they can also show that they competitively bid that self-funded condition assessment, which they often can, that's fine too. That's fine too. So it's just a little extra. Well, it's not really a hurdle if they've already done it. We just need to make that clear in the guidelines. But that's fine. The whole point was to kind of streamline it so they don't get the grant and then have to go out and rebid it. It kind of shortens the process. But we often, if an applicant has proven that they, competitively selected their consultant, you've seen applications before you that already have a consultant. So yeah, that's fine. They just have to show.
Okay, great. Leah?
Yeah, I was very excited to see this proposal because I'm working with a group that is experiencing this and was sort of overwhelmed by the fact that they'd have to fundraise for that additional piece, as well as the construction. So I think this is would be incredibly helpful. And yeah, so I fully support this one.
Margaret?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm also extremely excited about it with our project with the Middle Haddam School. Like we're right now trying to fundraise for the plans and specs, and it's going really slowly. And so, you know, this would just be amazing for us, and I'm sure a lot of other small organizations. So thank you.
That would, yeah, then that's, we do have a lot of, well, not a lot, but we do have applicants who could benefit from this right now. So great. I mean, if you, oh, yeah.
Beth Eckley?
I echo everybody's kudos to staff for identifying this need and figuring out how to do this, because I 100% agree that this is totally within our mission of facilitating you know, high quality restoration and preservation. So big, huge thumbs up. And then a follow-up question to Sarah's. Mary, when you talk about the standards for the conditions assessment, is that a written, I don't know if I'm familiar with that. Is that actually a written document, or is that quantified somewhere?
We do require in our contract with the grantee that any report or deliverable, like a condition assessment or plans and specs, meets the Secretary of Interior standards for the treatment of historic resources, buildings. So once they present that document to us, we review it to make sure the recommended treatments are in line with the standards. And so, yes, I mean, it's it's the Park Service. Mm-hmm. There's 4 approaches. We use the rehab approach, and that's the benchmark that we use to review the grant funded product.
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if you'll find as you go down this path that you might need additional parameters, like maybe the conditions assessment was very narrow and didn't include, I don't know, structural work or whatever. And, you know, I don't know, it's sometimes hard to know what those things might be, but I'm imagining that along the way, there might be some loopholes that you might need to fill in there. Sure. To define, you know, what the standard is for a complete conditions assessment.
Well, there's that too. If that's what, you know, if you're talking about content and format, and as you know, we've discussed this, and I kind of owe some follow up on some of our discussions, but oh yes, yeah, no, yeah, there's not just the fact that the recommended treatments meet the standards, but that the condition assessment itself is a solid document that, you know, the grantee and the architect can, you know, can draw from. Sure.
And luckily, the way you've envisioned this, they're already in your system and you're already following them. So you already have some, you know, you're already guiding them anyway. So, so I think that gives you a lot more purview and ability to guide them. But anyway, it'll be fully supported. And I think the 40 to 50 sounds about right to me. And so kudos.
Okay.
Sarah, do you have another question, or is your hand still up?
Sorry.
That's fine. Mary, a question for you. I think it's a great idea. How quickly do you envision being able to put this into place?
Well, once I like this afternoon. No, what I need to do is now go back to our guidelines and revise them with all of this. You know, post them on the website, advertise it, not advertise it, but just let people know that it's a new thing. So, and as I said, and as is evident here, there are many applicants that can already benefit from this right now. So, you know, fairly quickly.
Do you have some applicants in the pipeline already that
Yes.
could take advantage of it and back off on their fundraising?
Yes, definitely.
Great. Do you need anything from us other than what you've heard this morning?
No, I just really appreciate, you brought up some good points that we'll incorporate. And we just want to run it by you, see if you're comfortable with it, before we, kind of, finalized it and move forward. So just, stay tuned, hopefully. So,
Great. Before we end, Beth, your hand's still up. Is that from your previous question?
Hold on. I've got a lag on my mute. Yes, that is. I'm sorry. I'm
No,
I'm putting
that's
it
fine.
down now.
I just didn't want to miss you if you had another thing. So,
Thank
okay,
you.
Mary, I think it sounds like a great idea. So,
great.
sounds like you have the blessing of council.
Awesome. I appreciate your input and I appreciate your support.
Great. Next item on the agenda is liaison with public and private agencies. Is Jane with us?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Jane Montanaro, Preservation Connecticut. I don't have any announcements for the organization other than to express my deepest thanks to Margaret for so many years on the council. Margaret, you've just been a pillar of this organization, and so thankful for all of your guidance and smart comments and work for many, many years. We're going to miss you on the council, but hope to see you out in the field as you
Jane.
continue to champion the Middle Haddam School. Thanks, Margaret.
Great. Thank you, Jane. Jonathan, is anyone with us for the Connecticut Preservation Alliance?
Let me take a quick look. I do not see Patrick. Jane, do you have anything to add for CPA?
No, I don't have any notes from the organization.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is just a reminder, next month's meeting will be Wednesday, September 7th, 9:30 in the morning. And the last item on the agenda is a motion to adjourn today's meeting.
Before you do that, I just wanted to say to Margaret, thank you for your service. You have been an absolute angel.
Oh, thank you. I really enjoyed knowing you.
You will be missed.
Oh, thank you. I'll miss you too.
Keep in touch.
Will do, I promise.
Somebody else is going to have to be the grammar hawk now.
I think we have a few on board.
So a motion to adjourn the meeting
So moved, Christine.
and a second.
I'll second it, Margaret.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, Margaret.
Take care. Bye, Margaret. Have a good day, everybody.